think on my Instagram I mostly share them, but it's like the first, yeah, on Instagram. I think I shared two. It was with the first, actually the first two. So the last one I posted, purple one that's called Enchanted Loom. That was for a show called Lore. Um, the one it just opened up last Friday. That one was for it was at this museum. It's called the Mesa Art Center, and it's like a an amazing museum. I think it's really underrated. But it was part of this group show called Takeover. It was put on by the Red Gallery, and yeah, that one. We all kind of had were asked to do these. I ended up they allowed me to have two. I'll show you the other one. But yeah, so it was awesome. It was like a really great turnaround actually. I think they had over to mention they had over 2,500 people show up on opening night, which is kind of crazy. I don't even think they were anticipating that many people. I was definitely not, but it was awesome. It was a really good experience.
Right on. How did you come across the opportunity?
Well, the Red Tree, which is this awesome like community. I think I spoke about them last yeah, last interview. I had just done some shows with them. Um, and I've done a couple shows with them. They're like this really cool. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Hell yeah. We tried to look them up too, and we couldn't find them. Um, but they're just this awesome group of like artists and Matt who runs it, just an awesome. He's like an artist himself, and it started out. There's this plaza. It's called Denell Plaza. It slowly turned into like this group, just art community, like a bunch of I think some artists have shops there where they just like studios and ended up being like this space of just for art. Slowly, I mean, the Red Gallery came together and they were like, "Hey, man!" They just invited me, hit me up, and he was just like, "Do you want to be part of these shows?" And then did a little. I did a little small group show there too. Or actually, when he built this small little gallery inside, it's like a gallery inside a gallery. It was called La Pequeña Galería,
Hmm.
and he was like, "You wanna do this show alone?" I was like, "Damn, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'll have enough time to do work to fill it up." And I ended up doing it, and then we friendship, and it was his bond with them. Um, the Red Gallery though ended up eventually it's down. Just it's a long story, but the city on stat, investor. I mean, I guess they want to buy up that space, all that space, and make it into whatever. And it was in in the horizon. They knew Matthew was he knew it could end any day. Like that space wasn't going to be around. But I think it ended up being something where like he just reached out. It like he kind of became impactful in the community, art community. A lot of people were like hungry for just community art spaces where they can go see art. And eventually, yeah, he got in contact, and I guess they with the Mesa Arts Center, and we're like, hey, we put together have a group of a lot of artists and show. And yeah, this happened, and it came to be, and awesome. It was really cool being a part of it.
Nice. So they just happened to like just have find your Twitter or Instagram or what have you and just linked up that way.
Yeah, actually, what ended up happening, funny enough, is Matt he taught classes. He had this place called the Loft Studios, Tempe, and it was really cool. So he used to have open figure night, so open, figure night, and it was every Wednesday. I think he did. He would you can come in and just I think it was $20, and I heard it through another artist word of mouth. And they were like, "Hey, you should if you want to do some." I know places because I know there's things available like that, but a lot of them are like exclusive to students, and they're usually in schools. But there was this one space where like, "Hey, you want to go do some live figure drawing and stuff, or like live figure painting?" Like, there's a space I know studio you can just show up, you and you can just paint the model and everything, and I ended up attending them and for a while. And I just slowly like met random, and he was just kind of like, yeah, man, like you like my work, both things there. He saw me in my watercolors. I would do some figures, and he really liked my work. It was kind of just like one of those things where he just kind of like acknowledged, yeah, you're really good, man. Like your work's awesome. And then out of nowhere, it just kind of stopped going just because of work conflicting like time. Because they used to start at 6. I used to get off at work at 5, and by the time I got home, supplies ended up there. I'd be like a little half hour in when when they were doing the figure night, and it just got to the point where, like I ended up switching work schedule, and I just couldn't make them anymore. So I kind of just lost contact. But then out of nowhere, Matt hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, there's this. I have this gallery space. Would you be interested in coming and showing some work?" And that was that. Honestly, it just kind of became a good relationship. He's just like, "Do you mind like if we kind of have?" He's like, "You don't have to be exclusive to our gallery or anything." He's like, "But do you mind being like by show you on our website, make you kind of a part of our team?" He wanted me to teach classes too. That was a plan too. I wanted me to do some workshops. He's like, "Dude, come do workshops. I'll show you. I'll let you do some." That'd be awesome because a lot of people are like hungry for watercolor right now. Like they would love to see how to paint figures, watercolor, and all that stuff. And that was actually something we talked about and it was going to happen. I was really busy that month, so and then this ended up happening anyways. This show, that gallery space is closing down anyways. The Red Gallery in Dano Plaza, just because that plaza's like it's in the right now. It's in the midst of a fight with like the city wanting to. I'm not sure how that works, but like people want to buy the space. It's a really awesome space. It's right in the center of like a really cool area and B. So obviously there's all these people that want to buy the property and build it in, which is really sad because like a lot of people are like, yeah, let's I'm sure you know there or whatever, but they don't think of it as like, well, a lot of the community made this space for all people from all walks of life, and a lot of people it's like almost like a sanctuary too. It became like this space where people could just come and be creative. um People in that area, and then Danau Plaza did like an amazing space. It kind of just was like that. It was a kind of a place where everybody could be like a space of people would come and just be creative and find like almost like a space where they can feel like they're safe and all that stuff. And
So I mean, is it just because like
that's how
what
I
like they weren't able to like pay the rent or something, or like why is the city looking to redevelop that space? I mean, if it's being
it's
used up, if it's actually like going to use, well, what authority do they even have?
I mean, I don't know I know I really don't know much of the details. Like I'm not super versed in that, but it is kind of like that. I think it's has to do with like it's to do with rent, it's like space, like cost, and also it's just like I really don't know how those things work, but also I think it's just like it's like some abandoned. It's hard to explain, but it's like this plaza, and it's like a bunch of old shops, but they ended up being turned into galleries. And I don't know, people were paying rent. I know there's like a really cool music venue right there, and some other businesses, but like a record store there. I'm not sure how it works, but I think some people were paying rent, or maybe not. And it's just one of those things where like I don't know how that works, but I guess if people want to come buy property, they can offer up a good amount of money and buy
Mm.
them out. I don't know how it works. I know they're in the midst of like, fighting that with the city. So yeah, I know. To me, it make like what you're mentioning makes sense. Like if they are paying a rent, how like what gives them the right. But that's happened around a lot of spaces around where I live. What happens is I've talked to some of the store owners that some shops I used to hit up, and they're just like, well, what happens? I guess is like they're renting the space, right? So the shop where they're set up in that place, that plaza, or that street, they're paying a rent. And what happens is someone else comes and offers the owner, who actually owns, the landlord or whatever. They offer me is like, hey, I want to open up my shop here. Like, I could be paying you this much. And so what ends up happening is they just kind of get kicked out because they start raising the rent so astronomical to the point where like the
Um.
owner, I mean the people that end up shopping
Mhm.
can't afford it. Yeah, there was this thrift store I used to go to, and I ended up finding out the lady moved down like way further down. I was talking to her. She told me that she's like, yeah, what happened is someone came around and is like, hey, like there's other people with money, and they're like, I want the space because it's an awesome space, and they offer them like, hey, I'll pay you this much for rent. And so what they do is the landlord will end up just kind of being like, hey, I know you're paying this much monthly. I need this much. And so, almost to the point where like the person who's running the business there, the small business, can't survive. There's no way. They're like,
Mm.
this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to make profit at all. I can't even pay you this much. And so that's kind of what happens. Like, well, sorry, man. I'm like raising rent. It's kind of the same thing with like landlords and houses to my knowledge. But I think that's kind of what happened there. It's just like a lot of the Deno Plaza, I'm pretty sure a lot of those spaces there, people were probably, nobody was using that space. And then these people came around and they kind of made it into like an incredible space and an art space. And I'm sure some person like that, all that properties, like I get like it's prime, it's awesome. So some people came and they were like, oh, this is a space I want to buy, and they're probably trying to do the same thing, kind of raise the rent, or I'm not sure, but I assume it's something similar like that.
Sounds like the plot to like one of those '90s films where everyone has to get together and like save the town hall from the redeveloping landlord or something. That's
Oh, for
disappointing,
sure.
man.
Yeah, man, I see it like you have these like mom and pop shops or small businesses, and people end up like it's so like almost like a cliche, almost like
Hmm.
to a movie plot, but it really is like that sometimes. Like ends up being like this person has a small business, and then people end up like gravitating towards it, and it ends up being a bigger thing. And then you have this place where it's like, hey, this space is awesome. There's so much crowd and traffic around here. Like, let me open up my business, and they want to open up some bullshit business. I don't know. I would say like Chipotle or McDonald's. I don't know, but and they're like, I have money, and that's the thing. It's like money kind of rules everything. Like if you have a big amount of money, like big enough, you can kind of get into anything really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess on the bright side, you had a chance to exhibit your work there and be a part of the gallery. I mean, the desire for it isn't going to go away. It's just going to shift to another locale. So I'm sure that all this collective energy that was spent into making this show happen, it's just going to get funneled into elsewhere. It's just disappointing that they have to essentially restart from scratch. I mean, like they still have their own contacts. They still have people within the scene. I'm sure they'll be looking to restart somewhere else again. But yeah, that's a shame that you guys got pushed out of that because I remember this one place I went to during a festival that we have here in Toronto once every year. It's called Nuit Blanche. I think it's in October or something, where it initially started as this like really cool kind of underground arts collective where people would showcase their work from all over the city. And initially, I think it actually started in Montreal and then migrated over to Toronto and I think a couple other cities in Canada. And at the beginning, it was all just like either art students just trying to make a name for themselves or people that have been in the scene for a while looking to exhibit their works. But it was just a chance for them to not just take works that would look good in a gallery, like hung up with the proper lighting and everything, but a lot of street art as well. A lot of like real, like unique performance pieces. Like I remember this one where one year they had a line around the block where people were walking up to a trash can and there was like mariachi music coming from it and there wasn't like any explanation as to like what it was. There was no like you know, um, big tableau, like giving you a breakdown of like who the artist is or whatnot. You just had to line up and wait and hope that it was good enough. And then like you get to it, you open a little flap, you see inside the garbage can, then you just keep walking. There was no representative, there's no like name on it. It was just like one of those spontaneous things. And the whole city used to be filled with stuff like that. And then I remember this past year that I went, last year actually in October, and I was just sorely disappointed by how commercialized the whole enterprise had become. Once again, just chasing money because now the city got involved. And so what they did was they started actually placing a lot of these art exhibitions, at least the major ones, around business centered locations. So like they would have, let's say, the lobby of a hotel, which, you know, anyone off the street can enter, so you don't exactly like need to rent a room or whatever, but you know, alongside the works that they would be presenting in the lobby, they would have, you know, ads for like, oh, hey, by the way, we have a deal going on this, you know, this month. Or if you want to book a getaway here, we can help you with that. Like it was just, they tried to combine the aspect of like business and also art in a way that just, it felt, I don't know, it just felt really, really cheap at the end of the day. And
Mm-hmm.
when I
So
went,
artificial.
yeah, and when I went to like one of the places like you described here, where it was kind of like um in the middle of all these like busy shops and all that, but like you had a little corner cut out just specifically for the creative arts. When I went to a place like that, it was, I could just tell that the focus was on like, you know, buy this drink or like buy a shirt, and then you get to see this art, and it just, the whole thing just felt super cheap. Like I could not have been more disappointed because I'd planned the night out. It's supposed to be like a whole evening, like from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you spend the night just going around the city. I was longboarding like throughout like the entire city, just going across it, hoping to find some interesting art, and like nothing. I was so disappointed because I was like, I set aside time in my schedule to like, I haven't been like, you know, out on the late night like that in a minute. So I was like, oh, whatever, I'll sleep the rest of the day off. I don't care. And it just fell short. And I was like, man, somebody needs to start like
That's
a new initiative like that, because there was something real captured there, but now it's just all hollow.
and it really, it's true. It's it's crazy to mention that, and there's something similar here in Arizona. It's called First Fridays, and it 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, even. It's basically this whole section, these all these streets like are blocked off, and what happens is like there's all these people that local artists or artists would set up their tents, and they'd be selling artwork. You'd have a lot of little galleries that are around there. They'd actually have like open door, you know, and just see like you walk around, you know, the street, seeing people's art. Or there, and it wasn't just artwork; it was anything, right? So it was like
Hmm.
performance art, musicians. There's people doing tricks. There was even a lot. You see it a lot. It's like dance. They would have like these in the corner. They'd have like some, you know, break dancers. And then you just keep walking the street, you would see like, oh, this little gallery is open, and you just walk in, there's a space, there's a show, some kind, there's all this stuff happening. Um, Slowly started becoming also thing where it became like a very market, it became like a market more, and it
Hmm.
slowly shifted from like, you know, just people actually doing creative stuff to like people just trying to sell. It's still good. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna judge too what people want to do, but like it ended up going from that to becoming kind of like more like a market for like, you know, we have people selling, you know, candy or and stuff like that, which is fine. But I just think like it used to be more about, it was actually more focused on artwork, and then slowly like, you know, people were kind of even bothering to do shows, gallery spaces were kind of like, you know, we're not gonna do this anymore because people don't want to see it. It kind of became more of like a marketing, you know, like people selling, I don't know, all kinds of stuff that wasn't even have, they didn't have to do anything with art. It just became more like a somewhere to sell products that had nothing to relate to art. It wasn't even about a space or community anymore. It's crazy. It changed. It's so different to where it was like 10 years ago. Even before too, like it was really cool because they would have there's a big museum in Phoenix called the Phoenix Art Museum, and it was free on those days, so people would go there. I would go out very often. I would always start at the museum, and then just, you know, walk around, see the new exhibitions, and then from there make my way onto like the streets and, you know, walk around. But even I think the Phoenix Art Museum kind of stopped that too. They closed the doors because it's just, you had too many people coming in, which is crazy because it was great. I want people looking at art, but I think it just became so big because like a lot of people were just kind of treating it also like a lot of people that didn't really care about art. It just kind of started filling up the space, and we're just kind of started treating it like almost like a club in a way. And it's like I can't imagine how stressful that is, you know, like being just an insane amount of people just kind of going in there and not really being there, caring about the actual art is kind of just like a place to hang out and stuff. But it so much. So it reminds me of what you were just talking about, and that really does happen. And especially when like like not corporations, but like when companies get involved and it starts becoming very like it's kind of like surface level thing where it's not. You could tell it's just so forced marketable. Like lost the essence of what it was meant to be, and it's just it turns into this whole thing where it's just like okay, we get what you're trying to do now. It's more. It's just like you're just trying to sell stuff and what it was about in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the economic incentives behind it because at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for the space and somebody has to pay for the foot traffic and the security and the garbage cleanup and all that. But I find it hard to believe that you can't have that kind of space for people to appreciate the art without having to like essentially have that forced down their throats of just like buy this, buy that. Like it's just it seems odd that that's no longer a priority. I don't know if that's maybe because the the mechanism for patrons to actually fund the arts, like the incentives have not gone that way, or they've essentially like just been diverted because cost of living everywhere is basically going up. So it's become a lot more difficult to have these more like just for fun events where people can just, oh, okay, whatever, I'll just throw a couple K at this event and I might not get a return on my investment, but I know that it's for the public greater good. That's become a less of a priority as people are, tightening their wallets, even for the people that are well off.
I definitely see that too. I agree.
I think it'll return though.
You're based
Yeah. Go ahead.
out of Toronto, right? So do you still live in Toronto?
Yeah. I'm still based here. Yeah.
But I would love to visit. I'm sure you guys have like there's like a big art community there too, right? I'd imagine.
Yeah. There's a ton of galleries, ton of spaces. There's always some new exhibitions going on. Big art school, which I don't know. I haven't heard much from them. I mean, it's kind of like an impossible to ignore building just because of how crazy it looks from the outside. It's like let me see if I can pull up some photos. It's like this giant square thing that's held on these stilts. Which,
Yeah.
which like when you
Wow.
which like when you look at it, you're like, who the hell, like how is this even being supported? I don't understand how this thing is structurally sound, but yeah, it's a wild building.
It's kind of cool. I mean, from that picture you're showing, it looks so it sticks out so much like with the buildings in the back. Like yeah, it seems like this obelisk thing, you know?
Yeah, no, it's kooky looking. I was only been there I think one time on like a field trip, and on the inside it looks just like a university would, a lot of hallways and classrooms and all that. But yeah, from the outside it looks absolutely surreal. I don't know the story behind how they built it, but yeah, it's definitely one of a kind. Um,
She's super cool. I love that. That looks insane. There's so much crazy things about it. It's just like the way it stands out. As all the surroundings make it stand out. Even it seems more and I just and like yeah, you were talking. I was like realizing I was like, dude, that's the building. Like you can see the windows. That's crazy. That's freaking crazy.
yeah, I don't know how they managed to build it or convince the city to do it, but I'm glad they did. But yeah, no, there's a big enough art scene here, and besides even that one festival, Nuit Blanche, I think it happens in October. There's always something going on. Recently, though, the city has had to cut back on a bunch of festivals. Unfortunately, more cultural than like arts related. They say that they don't have the funding, but I don't believe them. It's not that they don't have the funding. It's just they're not they don't see it as a priority, and they're putting money elsewhere. Like recently, we've had some. They've been working on like renaming a lot of streets and like a lot of major areas in the city for one reason or another, and it just ends up costing millions because like these cities or these areas in the city have been around for so long that there's so much tied to their name that renaming them or changing certain things about them is just it's a redevelopment nightmare. And yeah, I mean, just generally in a big city, you're always going to have a lot of vested interests trying to look out for themselves. So I guess they just don't see that as a priority. But I think it'll have a comeback eventually, because the people are just getting sick and tired of being like, look, like, what are we paying all our taxes for? Like, if we can't even enjoy a night out like we used to, if we can't even go to these festivals anymore, like pretty like big
That's
festivals too that have been around for like decades that have just had to like for the last couple of years just shut down just because they don't have funding, you know.
sad. That's painful. That's especially because you build this attachment to these things too. Like you get used to these tools like you're mentioning, and it almost becomes for some people it becomes like a tradition almost, and or
Hmm.
like a part of their life. And seeing like places like that change or close, it gives you it is like a weird and sad feeling for sure.
Yeah, but no, I have faith that they'll return one day, just because the desire never goes away. It just gets put into something else. So people are always going to want to have this thing built up. I mean, even if it takes like people exhibiting their work or like having these festivals on their own streets and figuring out how to do that, I think it'll happen one way or another. It's just, yeah, a lot of politics being played around in the city as per usual. It's business per usual, but
Exactly.
it's fine.
It is 100%. It's funny because like you're in Canada, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about, it's similar things are happening here. I can completely relate. So yeah, I think it is. But yeah, I think you're right. People are just hungry for it, and a lot of people too are just like don't know about these things, right? Like I think that's one of the reasons why there was like a big turnaround for the Mesa Art Center. Like I think it's an underrated gallery, but a lot of people just don't know about it. I think a lot of people that showing up that were there, people that are just like, oh, cool, like maybe they were around, they were like, oh, like I just want to go out to a space and see some art. A lot of people just don't know that, right? Like they like it's like have people come to these shows, but they're just like I've never been to an art show. It's just it's one of those things where you hear a lot of people, there's people that hear about him, but they don't even know find one locally, or they don't have access to them, and they end up showing up and they're like, cool. I think people are hungry for them too. Like they just want a space where they can get together with a community. There's something about being around like a huge group of people in person, getting a break from your phone, the internet, and seeing just art through your phone or your computer, and actually being in a space where there's like other human beings with you. You're all like, kind of sharing this space, and just kind of admiring and appreciating some artwork. It's cool. It's a different feeling. It's like a refreshing uh, feeling that
Yeah, and
just kind of end up.
it's also just like the reaction to just the commercialization of it. Like the recently we had a big there's a big event that happens once a year. It's called the Fan Expo. It's basically like where all the nerds go, like comic book nerds and all that, people that cosplay and whatnot. But they noticed that like a ton of the booths that were set up to sell merch and all these different trinkets were AI generated. And whatever feelings people have about AI art, um, monetizing it through those kind of means where you just get a generated photo and you just slap it onto a print or like a keychain, that's essentially the way that I look at it. Is it's the same thing that, like, let's say all these different Amazon bots, what they'll do is they'll go on like DeviantArt or something and they'll scan for like the top hits of the week or the month or what have you, and then just slap it onto a shirt. And because the bot is hosted on some server in another country elsewhere, there's like no name attached to it. There's no storefront. There's no like company or anything. It's just essentially like a glorified web scraper. That's all that it is, really. That's the way that I look at it. But a lot of people were fed up with that too. They're like, why are these people getting booths, but people that are actually drawing like original content, they're not even allowed to get in. And I don't know what the criteria is for picking the different booths or who gets the funding, but I've noticed some chatter about that too. That people in like just small town art fairs, they'll do something similar as well. I've heard a lot of people complain about it. And I don't know how they're gonna control for that, because at the end of the day, like whoever hosts these things, like, do they really care? Like once, so long as they're getting paid, so long as they get the money for the booth or what have you. I guess at that point it's just like, well, do they have the integrity to not let that stuff go? Because I don't have a problem with AI art being exhibited, but I know for a fact that come on, realistically, all you had to do was just plug and play to make this happen, to put it on the shirt or whatever. Like that doesn't
No,
seem,
man, it's kind of for many reasons, but it is like, and I know what you're talking about. And there was another one. There's this other guy who got some flack. I didn't really go super deep into it, but apparently he's selling artwork, AI artwork, and it was like Disney artwork. And he set his booth up, and I've seen it actually. I've been to these conventions. I've been to some conventions here too, and I could see like they have like they'll make a banner, like it looks professional. They'll
hmm
have like the they'll set up their booth to look really good. They'll put money into their booth, and it's just like, but it's all AI artwork. And this guy, I think, got flack because he was pretending he was. I think, I don't know if he was pretending or something, but he was selling like artwork and pretending he was a worker for Disney or something, or an illustrator. And he actually got into a lot of trouble. But yeah, it's one of those things where you get those spaces where there's people working hard, and it's hard work. That's the thing about it. It's like a lot of things to also assume, you know, when you're painting or drawing, that people are like, oh, it's a fun job. It's like you're painting for a living, or drawing. And it's like, man, that's like farthest from the truth. It's fun, obviously, but it's like so much work. It's so much work, especially artists that do convention stuff. Like there's so much goes into it besides the art making. Like a lot of artists that are like, it's like a really high caliber. You'd be surprised. Like 90% of, I mean, like 80% of the job is it's not even just painting or drawing. It's all this other
hmm
and of like stuff that has painting. It's such a hard thing to do. So to go to like a place like that where you're trying to sell your artwork, and make enough money to break even, or even make some profit, because those can get pretty expensive for renting booths, and just have kind of generate artwork and selling it. It is. It's kind of, I can understand why people get upset. It is. It's pretty insulting. It's not. I guess if they did it through another space, but doing it through this kind of space is just. It's just another level of. It's fucked up.
Yeah, because I don't have any problem with it existing in the online space. Like people always have this debate, like, is it art, is it not? Like it is. It's just a different like caliber of art. It's in its own separate category that's hard to pin down. And like people can talk about that, till they turn blue in the face, but nothing is going to change about the fact that it is a form of art. Like whether it has value or staying power, or any of that, like that's a whole other conversation to have. But yeah, as you said, putting it in that space where you're now competing with artists that are actually making it their life's work to set all this up at home in their own studio, or whatever space they're working in, that kind of changes it, because now you're taking a lot of the time that you would otherwise spend creating a work or a series of works for this collection. Now you just prompted it, and now you just have to select between whatever ones you think are the best, or which ones have had the best reach on whichever platform you're posting them on. You pick those, and then you just print out a bunch of prints or keychains or shirts or what have you, and then you're good to go. And I mean, I guess that's like, in a way, that's always existed. There's always been groups of artists that's also how they approach their work. It's not that they spend so many hours on a single piece and working on it and devoting their life to it. But there's people that'll just like splatter something on a page and be like, all right, well, that's good enough for me. I'll sell that. It's just that now you can do it at a rate that has never been known before. And then also it's like how do you even go about challenging any copyright issues? Because I know certain models, like they have certain terms and conditions that you have to agree to when it comes to generating works or selling them or anything like that. But realistically, who's actually going to track that down? How can you even tell what model was used to make which piece and who has the rights to what image? It becomes this like impossible web of deduction. I mean, unless there's something that is actually in the code of the image that ties it to that model that you can maybe use in some sort of lawsuit, like is there really any enforcement mechanism? I mean, this feels like just about every other technological advance that we've ever had throughout human history, where it happens so quickly that we're not able to adapt and we're just kind of left picking up the pieces afterwards and nobody really knows what to do with it. Because like, yeah, like how do you even enforce copyright in the age of AI? Unless it's as blatant as that guy, the Disney artist that you mentioned there, where he's actually like ripping off like the main characters. Like how could you even tell what's been generated and by which model?
I think it's going to get more complex, I think, as AI gets better. But a lot of it, you can actually, the thing is, like, it's a difference from like a human kind of growing up with all these different influences and then just kind of like homogenizing into this unique thing where the artwork, it has this look, right? But I think with the problem with like the AI generated artwork is it's like there's all these, well, in human, there's a millions like different intricate things end up impacting whatever a person or however the person makes of artwork with auto generated images. It's kind of like it's taking information and or like images from stuff that already exists. So when it like regurgitates like a piece of artwork, you can always almost tell exactly what the influence is, what or where it took from. It's the obvious one. It's super simple, like the most obvious you can tell, and it wasn't trying to hide it. But like the Ghibli stuff, they
Oh
made a
yeah,
whole
yep.
Ghibli art, and that one's super obvious, right? Because they were clearly trying to do that. More complex ones, like people, you can always tell, like whenever I see an auto generated one, I can always tell like who they were taking from, because a lot of times it's like the big artists, especially if you're in the art community. You're kind of, I mean, it's the art community is gigantic, right? But like you I think the thing people generate, or the thing the auto generator will take, is usually a lot of the stuff that exists online. So it's going to take from the biggest artists that have the most artwork online that exists, right? Like it's just natural. Well, the bigger names in art usually have the more images that exist online, the more work. So it'll take more training from those images. And so like whenever I see art, I can always honestly tell instantly who it was taking or who was trying to replicate. And that's like a completely different thing, because I'm sure there's other artists that have clearly, the prompt, they are trying to use this other artist, so they're telling it what it wants, like, so it's even more obvious. But even the people that aren't trying to be, when they just auto generate, I can kind of always stylized to an extent. I can kind of most of the time I can tell. I'm like, oh, I know exactly who was kind of generating, like where it took its influence from. And it's a because like obviously, right, people like to make this argument where like, well, it's artists also copied from other artists, but it's a different thing with a computer and algorithm. It's taking, I'm not an artist. I'm actually reading a book. I just started a book on that, which is I'm really excited to read. It talks about like the AI, you know, and it's not just like the AI we know from how we're the computer one. We're like,
Hmm.
we're GPT. Not that. It's talking about like the whole of AI, and it's a cool book. I'm excited to start actually reading it. But a few things about it, and it's taking it from perspective from everybody, like the people that are against it, the people that are for it, the people that are like in the middle. And it's gonna be, I'm really interested because it's supposed to introduce, it's gonna present the information from like a complete professional side, and then it's not trying to influence anybody. It's not, the book supposedly is not going to be like, okay, I'm not, it's just showing you the reality of it. And maybe be people can be more optimistic about it because it's not so black and white. Nothing is, right. It can't. People like to be like bad and good, and things in life are never that simple. It's never black and white. Thing you can't. AI isn't bad. There's so much complexities to AI, and it's implemented in so many fields like medical AI in medicine and health is incredible. So like that's just one faction where AI is being used. So make these blanket statements, but we're talking about art. I think what I was saying is it's you can see like there were their influences on their sleeve, but it's very different because there's so many factors that influence like an artist, to the way they will lay down a line, whatever decision subconsciously they, how they start their line, they lay down that first stroke. That's dictated by like all the intricacies of their life, like everything they've experienced in life, anything,
Mm-hmm.
videos, movies, walks, smells, feeling of the floors, the pavement they walked in, whether you lived in the city and you were walking through sidewalks, or someone grew up more in the countryside. They remember the smell of the fields and the terrain they were walking, things that people don't even think about, all that stuff influences an artist, and that's what pours out into their work. It's so intricate, millions of things. So that will end up pouring and dictating how an artist wants to paint and draw. And auto-generated, it's like that artist is putting a prompt, the human is, but like it's just pulling. Yeah, it's taking influence from a couple of different things, just like a lot of artists is, but it's cutting out all the other stuff, right? Because it's just like pulling it almost from like I don't know the lingo because I'm not an AI expert, but it takes all this computer information and it just kind of like puts it together and regurgitates it into this new image. Still, it's a different feeling. I can tell, you know, where the AI where it took the information to pour out this image, as opposed to an artist that's like, okay, I can tell who influence when I can see other artists. I'm like, oh, I can tell whose influences they are and who they took inspiration from. It's different. It's a very different image that comes out and in different feeling too. It's weird. It's artificial, and I know AI is going to get better, right? But it still has other. I think it still has this, artificial for lack of a better word, but it has this artificial look to it. And I'm not saying it as in a bad thing, but it's not good or bad. It has this art look of influence as opposed to human being human can like there's people that like draw very similar to artists are influenced by. I have a lot of artists inspire me and influence me. And people want to sometimes be like, I want to draw like this person. He's like my biggest influence, and they will end up drawing and even choosing to paint like that other artist or those other artists. But it's still like one part of it. It's a million things that influence the or they whatever they create,
Mm-hmm.
even from that day too. I mean, shit, even if they sit down at their desk that day and I'm like, I'm gonna paint this and I want it to look like this artist. Like I'm trying to manifest this art and I want my artwork to look like him because I'm inspired by this artist. Well, there's all these other things that go in, man. That person, whatever, you took a shower that morning, maybe you're feeling a little or something bopped in the head, or you heard some news right before you sat down on your desk. That's going to influence, change the trajectory of just the way you paint. Even if this artist is painting, has a style, even if an artist has a style and they're like, oh, that's so and so, each piece they produce is a little different, even at a minuscule level where we might not even consciously see it, but there's always going to be because humans we're living and we're experiencing things every day, and our brains are changing. Our brains aren't our brain plastic, they change and mold. The brain isn't, you don't hit a level where your brain just becomes cement and it never changes. The brain is incredible where it's always changing and molding. So every piece an artist produces or human produces is going to be different in some shape or form. Even if they nail down the science, like they're like, I know how to replicate, I know how to do this art style, I can do my artwork, and I know exactly what method to follow so I can keep producing stuff that has a similar look. Uh, Different because there's millions of other factors that affect us every day, and influence us and change the way we behave or move that day. So I don't know. I just went on this whole tangent, but that's just the kind of thing with AI. The thing with places like you said, and are they going to care? At the end of the day, they're getting paid for the booth. But my other thing, it's like my opinions aside from AI, because it's such a complex topic, and I think we talked about it in the last podcast. I went pretty deep into like my thoughts on AI, and it's never bad. I'm not like I'm not shunning, and I'm not like, oh, bad, good, because it's a very complex topic. But I always come back to think about the consequences that it's going to do to humans. So like forget the rights, forget everything else about AI when it comes. But when I think about like the booth thing, right? Yeah, there's booths, they're going to get paid for that booth, but you have to think about the ramifications of doing that, right? Because sure, I mean, you can start having more AI artists take, or if they don't want, they're like, yeah, sure, this booth, hey, you over here, our work, sure, but point where it's going to have some ramifications. People are going to start becoming more disillusioned by the work, or they're not going to want to go to these spaces anymore. That's going to have some, consequences. Also, I always speak about it where it's like, regardless of your AI, I think it could become a tool, whatever. We can talk. That's such another complex topic. But the one thing I always tell people, it's like, at least you don't give up on the human side of it. I think it's important. If you're going to use AI, I'm sure AI in the future is going to become a tool, and a lot of people are using it, right? But my thing is, I think it's super important that people still go through the motions of creating as a human. So please, you have. It's such an important part. I believe, and I think a lot of the issues people are having now, a lot of people are, feeling a vision with like life and stuff. I think because people are no longer creating with their hands, and they're no longer being in this creative space, right? Because I talked about in the last podcast we had, but when you're creating a piece of artwork, a lot of people, focus on just the end piece, and it's like that's not the most enriching part of creating art. Especially not for me. I can speak from a personal level. Painting at the end is just it's like 10% of what I find so enriching and amazing and rewarding about art. It's the everything that it's being in that space, putting your mental space where your brain is doing all this amazing stuff. That's incredible. Your brain's growing, like your neurons are firing. You're creating neurons, by doing repeating these things, these actions, this experience. You're experiencing stuff. You're being in this space, and then not only that, but like you learn so much. That all out of all the books I've read on art and me learning this craft stuff, I've gotten so much out of it where it's just helped me in life. Not even from like an artist level, not even just the creating art, but like there's a lot of stuff I've learned from reading books on art or how to create art from these other artists that have like have transferred into real life, and how I experience life, that has been so incredibly like helpful for many reasons. So all those things and a million other reasons. That's why I always tell people it's like you have to be in it and try to create and be in the space and still have, you know, try to create with your hands or whatever. Be in this space first. If you're gonna use this tool, that's fine. But like don't skip out on this part, because you're skipping so much of like the most, in my opinion, some of the most important part of being creative. A lot of times people are skipping over that, and I think a lot of people get stuck in this. They get stuck in this trap where you want the fast, especially we're living in such a fast world where we're used to fast feedback, fast information, fast videos, and a lot of times now we're so uh, desperate to see an end result. You want the end result now, like I want it now, and we skip over a lot of the stuff in the middle, and I think that's a lot of the most important, rewarding part of it. And because of that, you can see consequences of that. I think that's why a lot of people are like feeling disillusioned, or they're not feeling satisfied, and it's like, it's because you're not time to be in that space. It does a lot for the mind, and
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from. There's a lot that you lose when using these kind of shortcuts. Um, and it just as we were talking about this, I was thinking when it comes to like some kind of an enforcement mechanism of like how is it that we can set up a system so that we can actually detect what is and isn't AI art, or how we can place a value on works that are AI based or not AI based, and how do we go about filtering that for these conventions or pop-up shows or what have you. And I just kept thinking like, okay, maybe there's like something that we can do with some kind of, I don't know, addition like on the blockchain, or just something that we can like create an AI detector. But at the end of the day, I realized like there's really no, I don't think there is really a way to set up a technologically backed system that will allow some kind of a verification or authentication rather, that can filter for these kind of works, but that instead rests with every single one of us to make that choice. Because as you said, it's like, look, it's nice and all that we can get all this convenience. It's nice and all that we can get these instant results that seem gratifying in the moment. But at the end of the day, it just leaves you hollow and empty, because you haven't really learned anything. You haven't really experienced anything. You haven't really sacrificed anything to get to that end product, or at least you haven't sacrificed anything that people, you know, before AI had to work their ass off to make. And there's a lot of things that you learn about yourself and the world and life and relationships and all these different aspects of the human experience. But that it's going to take every single one of us to make that choice in the moment, to be like, well, sure, the AI booth guy, you know, work is, you know, 20% cheaper or what have you than the guy right next to him. But at least I know who I'm supporting made their work by hand or whatnot. That what I'm getting at is that I think it's going to come down to like just an individual decision that we make every single day, and that you're the only way to actually create some kind of shared consensus around it is not from some top-down system or authentication app or what have you. It's going to be through a choice that we make as societies, as cultures, to actually embrace, or rather like make more room for people that are manually working at this. And the art could be in anything, whether it's like making music videos or, you know, just prints or paintings or what have you. That it's going to come down to individual decision making and people's ability to suss out whether or not it's AI or not. Because at the end of the day, like, no matter what top-down system exists, the technology is always going to be much better than it. It's always going to be able to escape containment and just be able to override it. Like I remember when ChatGPT was like just hitting the mainstream, there was a guy that was working on this app for like an AI detection tool, because he saw it as a problem and that he could actually monetize it by selling the app to like universities and whatnot to gauge whether or not the paper that was being written was AI or not. Now, this guy made the app maybe, I don't know, like a year or two ago, but realistically, like whatever ChatGPT version they're on now has already eclipsed, you know, that app's capabilities of recognizing whether it's AI. I constantly see like stories online of people's papers in university getting dinged for being AI, even though they're like, I literally didn't even use AI for this. Like I'm not even trying to cheat the system in any way. I just wrote it, and it's not perfect. That's what I'm getting at, is that these systems are not perfect. And so it's just going to come down to be able to, for people to detect whether or not it's artificial or not, and then make a value judgment as to whether or not they want to actually put their money into it. Because at the end of the day, like, I'd still much rather see a real movie than an AI movie. You know, like an AI movie I would see out of curiosity to see how close it could get to like a real movie. But I would still much rather go see, you know, some art students' shitty, you know, first year film than someone that just slapped together a couple of prompts and put it together. I'd find I'd get a lot more of an enjoyable and enriching experience out of it.
Like when I'm talking about this, it's literally not. And when we talk about this, it's not coming from a snobby part where it's like, oh, you think you're better. You know what I mean? Not at all, man. It to me, what I'm trying to say to it's like, we don't think the consequences, and like believe me, this is gonna have effects. Just like us using phones, right? So like we're starting to see all these studies are coming out with like, the effects of a generation growing up with phones. All this has real consequences, good and bad. But like the thing people don't realize, it's like when you decision to jump to this fully, and you will have some there could be some consequences to it, right? So like, sure, people, I can, if they want, I mean, they can consume, and they can choose AI art to buy, and that's complete a free decision you can make.
Hmm.
But then there's there there's things where people, I remember there's like products that get made like fast. Look at fast, and it's not this. I'm not trying to say it's 101 the same, but like look at like fast fashion, right? So
Hmm.
fast fashion became a thing where it's like, oh, we can make, or like you made a perfect example about like the bots just scrubbing and reselling stuff.
Hmm.
That's such a real thing, right? And as a consequence that happens, like, and this isn't even this is like completely real, but like we end up with things like, you have suppliers cutting corners. So like a lot of the people have this thing where they're like, dude, stuff used to be better back in the day. Dude, that's a real thing. It is
Hmm.
real. So we know there was a study came out, and this is all real, but like clothing, one of them, right? So clothes in the back in the day used to be made with better material, but then as supply and chain, it gets bigger, and these companies are like, oh, we need to pump out more stuff. You have to cut corners, right? So they start cutting corners here, a little bit here, a little bit there. They start trimming this here, and then that ends up having some consequences. And then what ends up happening is people are like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, right? And then people are like, are you sure you don't want to support? I know this is more expensive over here, but like we should still kind of support this here. Or and then people are just like, fuck it, no, I want the fast, cheaper option, or just the fast stuff. And then when is we people hit this level of exhaustion where we're like, this sucks. Like, why
Hmm.
is nothing inspiring anymore? We're just pushing out trash, or these clothes aren't good anymore. Everything falls apart, and it's like, yeah, that's an example of a consequence where it's like if you don't nourish and keep stuff alive, or you end up with stuff like where corporations will be like, oh, this is an easier way, a faster way, cheaper way, then let's keep pushing this out, and then you end up with an oversaturation of that, and then people get, you know, we end up in this like almost like a depressive state where we're like, damn, we're kind of sick of seeing this. Is kind of this feels like flat, and feel like there's love poured into this, right? You can always tell, like when you go to products now, you end up looking for a product, and almost sometimes I don't even buy it anymore because you end up with all these like listings of the same product, and it's
Hmm.
like you can tell these are just, like you said, they're bots. They're just scrubbing, and they're just like, well, we can sell this cheaper version of it, but then it's feeling so flat, and it doesn't have love to it. It doesn't. There's no love poured into it. So you get this product, whatever it is. It could be a piece of clothing, and people consider it. People, I mean, I don't know if everybody's different, but like I can speak for myself, and a lot of people were like, I've gone stuff, and you fall out of love with it so quick because there's almost like no love to this. You can tell, like you get this piece you bought, and then you're just like, oh, it's like it ends up losing it, and it's like, and it's because it wasn't. You can tell it wasn't even if you don't know, there wasn't the same amount of love put into it. The same amount of care put into it. It was this faster thing that was just pushed out and made. And sure, that it's more available, but it's like you will start feeling those that you small little things where you're just kind of like, it's not the same. It doesn't hit the same. And I think that's with film too. Plus, we're not even done with the media too. It's like the medium is so there's so much more to do. It's like I'm so for new tools, and tools are always going to keep coming out, right? But it's the way we use them. We have to just be careful and conscious of how we use these things. I think now in this fast paced world of the internet, and everybody wants, it's like the thing where like, a lot of people were like, oh, everybody wants to be a YouTuber, and everybody wants to be a TikToker. And it's like, well, yeah, I get it. It seems so appealing because it's just like, oh, I can make quadruple, make a good salary if I can
Hmm.
just do this media and push this product out. And that's beautiful, right? But what ends up happening is a lot of people are like, there's this way of doing it. There's people doing using the medium to do cool, like amazing stuff. They actually want to use the medium to like do whatever they want to do. And then there's people who are like, oh, there's this fast, you can do the same thing, but it's like this fast food way of doing it where you're going to make the same amount. and even more stuff you're pushing out, you don't really care that much about it. Like I know, I know some people who they're types of influencer where they're like, you could tell they're just in it, they're just selling you the
Mm,
stuff. They don't really care about what they're doing. They're not using this platform because they wanted to share and express this thing, whatever it was. It doesn't even have to be in the creative field, right? But like whatever it is, because you have this person that's like, oh, I'm gonna talk about books, and you could tell they actually care about books, and they're like, they talk about it and the way they do the video, whether it's high budget or not. You could just tell that person actually cares about what they're talking about or whatever they're presenting to you. And they have the people that can do the same thing, but it's faster and cheaper. And then what happens? People get sick of it. You're like, I'm sick of these ads. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of seeing ads. And when they're so flat and surface level, because it feels like fast food. It's just like you have this product, and once you get it down to like a science, you can you get you get it down to the systematic science, and you're just like, okay, easy. I can now you can replicate this and market it and make profit, and that's what ends up happening. People fall, and it's like a lot of times it's not everybody's fault. It's just it becomes such an easy way where people are like, oh man, I'm suffocating over here. I want to make a living, and then you have this appealing way. It's like you can make faster profit by following this format. It's super simple, and so a lot of people end up just gravitating towards that. But you're sacrificing, like I said, the part of it where you end up with a lot of things in life, and people consuming the product end up dissatisfied, and everything kind of just feels a little more gloomier. And it's like it's because everybody's just kind of we're all kind of wanting just the fast food. We're wanting fast stuff and the easier. We want to take the path of easier, less resistance. Um, but then what ends up happening, you have with people making comments where like movies suck nowadays, and it's like, well, yeah, man, it's because you guys are, we were consuming this, or everybody's choosing to go this. Like, then keep nourishing the other stuff that so, companies, especially bigger money, are going to end up choosing this stuff if it's just going to make them the same amount of money, and it can be fast, quicker and easier made. They're going to end up going this way. Like you have to make, like you said, it's up to us to make that choice. I invite other people too, like young people, young artists. Like, hey man, like illusion. Don't choose the faster, easier thing to do. If you really want to do that type of stuff, then go ahead and do it. But I still come and use the still like traditional or do the other media that still exists. Like with film, like you said, I'm not done. There's so much cool film still coming out. My film is blowing. It's still blowing me away. There's incredible movies coming out now. These incredible young new directors that are coming out. So it's like that we still have so much to say with these types of with this medium and these other types of mediums. And it's like we don't need to be jumping on to new stuff, like, right, like there's so much to explore over here. Like, let's fit in slowly instead of just making a head-on dive to it, because it's dangerous that way. It's like cell phones. I mean, I grew up in the era where cell phones were a thing, and then they came to be when I was like in my teens. And it's crazy, man. It's fast. It happens so quick, and I totally see the consequences. Even the way our brains are molded and changed. It's insane from a scientific stand, from like literally like from a philosophical side too. It's like
hmm
you can see what it's done. How it's changed our the way we consume, the way we observe the life, and the way we move, the way we behave, the way we deal with anxiety and our emotions. And it's crazy. It all has consequences.
Yeah, and on the bright side, I think it's a swinging pendulum, like almost all things in life, and so eventually it'll just come around to, like you said, those feelings of emptiness, and that's just kind of the byproduct of going for all these cheap and fast things. But I think eventually the instinct always comes back to a rejection of it. Like I've seen plenty of people like throughout the years make all this commentary about like, oh my god, like great, another Call of Duty, oh great, another Marvel movie, another this and that. It's like, well, like we have to realize that we vote with our dollars. Every dollar that we put into whatever it is that we consume is a direct signal to the person that's making that product or service that they want that product or service to exist and to prolong it and to invest it further. So all it takes is just a concerted effort on people to be like, well, I'm actually not going to spend money on the latest blockbuster. I want to go see an indie flick in my local theater, or I don't want to just buy fast fashion. I'd rather pay a little bit of extra to somebody that's local and doing a pop up that actually sells, like, let's say 100% cotton T-shirts or what have you. Um, it's a hard thing to turn away from, because when you do need just like a cheap, quick fix, whether it's like an AI generated logo or what have you, um, just for the sake of like a single purpose, there's a great utility in it, but once it becomes concentrated to such a large extent that now it becomes the mainstream way of fixing a problem or offering a service, that's when we kind of just lose things, because like that's why Hollywood um has become the way that it is, because they know that there's a formula that they can follow. If they just get the right stars or the right names on the movies, then that's how people will actually fill in those seats. But it's up to the audience members, it's up to every individual to make that choice for themselves. Like on that note, when eventually, like, I want to start my own, like, having my own family, I'm curating a media list that I would want my kids to watch and to listen to, because I don't trust that the media that's out there now is going to be like fulfilling in any sense. Like, Coco Melon is the last thing that I'm going to be showing my kids, because I know for a fact that that thing is it's designed. It's absolutely designed to have like all these fast jump cuts and flashy colors and all that, just to keep the attention of the kids, because now attention is the new resource. Now it's the new economy. And I know that, having grown up on the media that I did, it gave me a certain perspective on the world, and I think that would certainly trump, whatever perspective is getting shoved out now, because it doesn't even feel like there is, I don't know, any, I don't know, not a lack of morality, but any kind of staying power in a lot of the content that's being pushed today. Even as you said, like, a platform like Instagram or even like TikTok or whatever, it's not inherently bad, because there are a lot of creators that are doing some really, really, really cool stuff, that are really pumping out and pushing boundaries when it comes to creating these videos, or just whatever content they're making, that is actually like just genuinely cool to see. But at the same time, like, how much of that feed is clogged up with all these halfway cut videos with like Subway Surfer at the bottom and a podcast clip on top, and how many of those channels exist in, like, let's say, like, third world countries, because people figured out, like, oh, that's actually a much easier way for me to make money instead of going to work in the fields or what have you. Like, I can now be a part of this digital economy that everyone else is going to be paying attention to, and what do I care, so long as my video gets enough clicks and views. It's like, well, we gotta be able to turn away from that. If we actually want something of substance, we got to be able to reward the people that are actually putting in the work into not just content, but like the products that they're making, the services that they're offering. If we want that, it's in the
Oh, dude,
same
you're so right.
it's in the same way of like calling a restaurant and asking them to, like, put an order for pickup or delivery instead of Uber Eats, because like Uber Eats has their own model, they have their own ways of going about things. But if you actually just donate all, like, give all the money to the restaurant that's making that meal, it means a world of a difference. It's big, because now that's money that Uber's not getting. Now it's money that the restaurant is purely getting. It sends a different signal.
No, you're absolutely right. You mentioned about your kids and all that stuff. Like, that's the thing. It's like you have YouTube and these platforms. I always tell people too, corporations that have these platforms, really what makes platforms is the people in it, the creative people. Like, Instagram was one of my favorite, and a lot of my art growth was because of the community. Like, I give it up to like the art communities that existed there, because Instagram was very heavy art based for a while, especially like pre-COVID. It was huge, dude. Like, there was so much energy, love, really felt like a community. I met so many people, so many friends from across through there, and it was really this community base. And then it all got killed when Facebook or Meta bought Instagram, and everybody remembers when the algorithm kind of went to shit.
Hmm.
It went weird. It was like no longer it. From there, it was just like steady decline, and words came and everything. And I knew artists of mine that like just that I loved that took a huge hit too. Their stuff was just not being, they weren't getting the same exposure. It wasn't having that natural
Mm.
growth and exposure it was before. But like a lot of these sites, there's so much amazing stuff in there, and what makes them great isn't the company. Like it's the people. There's a reason why we want to go to these sites. Or I used to use Instagram a lot was because of the artists and the people in there, not because of Instagram. I like what they were making wasn't that it was cool. I like the idea. Shout out to how whoever designed the idea, but it's not that mind blowing. And plus, you can have this incredible execution, right? You can have like amazing website. It's not going to have staying power if what's being inside it isn't amazing, or isn't enriching and isn't great. So like YouTube is one of those where it's like you can have the most, you know, fast food. The creators know they're just pushing out just stuff to get clicks. It's like those fake setup pranks or like
Oh yeah, man on the street
tell it's
interviews.
fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the thing, it's like it's not so much the format that's bad. It's just like you can tell the difference between someone that's does it really well to people who are like, oh, you know how we can make easy? Boom, this plot, this setup, blah blah blah. And those people you can just tell they're the reason they're even doing it is because they're like want to actually make that content. It's because they're like, this is gonna make us the fastest clicks and the most traffic and most money, right? And then YouTube, I some of the best stuff I've ever seen. Like I'm talking about like people say this all the time, like documentary quality
Hmm.
or just stuff that I've been like, whoa, I've learned so much has come from YouTube and creators from YouTube. It's amazing. I love YouTube for that reason. Let's say I love the creators in YouTube more than YouTube itself. But like you were saying too, it's like it's good that you're doing that with when you start your family. I think that's important because all this like it does have consequences, man. That's the thing. It's like that has staying power. Like our brains are, they change. They used to think back in the day that once you hit like adolescence, your brain stopped changing. Like it couldn't change. But then, now it's like finally it's agreed that the brain is plastic. There's neuroplasticity that happens. So when you're 70-year-old, 78-year-olds can still like their brains can still change. A lot of times the reason you see a lot of the 78-year-olds, a lot of the wave is because they just stop enriching those brains. So their brains kind of like, all right, we don't have to use this stuff. We don't have to keep growing in these areas, these neural neural maps and stuff. So it just we become stagnant, so it doesn't change. It's not because old people start deteriorating. So a lot of the people are like, we assume that like older people, like when you're 78, you just become less sharp. Well, you do become less sharp, but it's not because the brain is stopped doing it. It's because we just kind of as we get older, we become accustomed to how we when you're younger, you're learning how to drive. There's all this stimulation. You're learning all these new things. So your brain's literally like, all right, let's keep building. Let's keep growing. When you get older, you kind of learn who you are and what you like. So you kind of just start going through these paths and as you drive, we all do it when we drive to work. You take the same path. You kind of almost like can shut off, and you're not even having to think about it too much because you're just kind of in like an automatic mode. But that's what happens. Like when you get older, a lot of old people, the reason they become less sharp is because they literally just become accustomed to doing this way of living, and they're just like they don't really have to think and grow that much anymore. But stuff older people where they like make them start learning a new language, and it's harder, but like then that stimulates a part of their brain, or they start training again how to like listen and sound and talk and react fast. And then you have people that like age back like 40 years. I'm talking about brain wise, right? Like the way they react to things, reaction times, speaking is becomes more fluid. It's weird, it's crazy, and it's because of like they're still you're stimulating your brain again, and your brain's like, oh, okay, let's dust off these neurons and let's start regrowing these neural pathways that we kind of that started fading away, or we started kind of disconnecting because you don't need them anymore that much. We're not using them anymore more. And so like all this has consequences. So when you choose what stuff to consume or what you're not going to become, you're not going to do anymore, like whatever you consume, like you said, you're younger. I grew up with was nourishing, and you can still find nourishing stuff now, right? But like if you choose to choose a lot of this stuff, whatever you choose to consume or however you choose to live your life, that actually has consequences. And like I said, the cell phone's one we can all relate to. I can see it like as I get older and I become aware of it and more conscious of how the brain works and all that stuff. I have a lot of patterns or habits I've built. It's crazy. And I'm like, oh, that's a consequence of like the way I've started using. I've been so accustomed to using a cell phone and things I've stopped doing. So like, it's crazy, right? But like people, it's so easy to get food like through this sounds so silly, right? But it's so easy to get like through Postmates or something food
Hmm.
because people don't go to the market. I've been there, dude. Like it was to a point where I'm still an anxious person, but it got to a point where I started getting very anxious. So like I didn't even go into the store. I didn't like it. I was really anxious. I hated going to the store, going to the cat to the to the store clerk and like line with being talked to. I hate it, and that's all part of me. I'm naturally like that too. But that 100% was made worse because of like being so online so
Hmm.
much and just kind of being different from the real world. I was influenced by that. What you know enhanced that? What made it worse? Um, very aware of that. So now I started slowly becoming more conscious of that. So making the decision to like instead of maybe or go online or something, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go to the store. Or even take one step further, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna go walk. Like, we were talking about taking film and taking photos the other time we spoke. And that was another thing that I loved about film photography. One of the reasons why I even picked up film was because I love film and I love that medium. But a huge part of it was because I was like, painting, drawing, you can take that outside, right? If you're a plain air painter, you can sketch outside, which I did every once in a while. But I was like, what medium do I love that I can take out in public and do something more public? And I was like, film. And I would film got me to walk around. I'd be like, I'm gonna go walk around the neighborhood and just observe the world because that's what you're doing. You're doing film. Sometimes you're walking around, you're just kind of looking around. You're very observant of the world. You're taking it all in and shooting and you're being involved in this creative space. You're being involved and you're consciously there. And it's incredibly enriching, and also it helped me out so much because I was like, oh yeah, this is a whole part of me and a lot of people that were kind of like starting to like shut off, and access anymore. And the same thing with the store. It was crazy. Like you have these self checkout lines, and I would always be like, I'm going to the self check. If I had to go to the store, I'm going to the self checkout line. I don't want to interact with people. I was actually avoiding interacting with people the most I can. I still am like that to a certain extent, but I noticed as I started being like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna go to the register with the clerk. I'm gonna try, or I'm gonna go into public spaces more, walk around, talk to more people. I noticed how that started changing a lot of stuff consciously. I was very conscious of how it changed my brain and the way I went about things. That I was
Hmm.
a little less anxious. I was a little less stressed. It's like more relieving. We forget like all these little decisions make such an impact and a difference. And it's the same thing with the stuff you consume. Like you mentioned, you want to put this together for your family when you have a family and you want them to consume this. That's a real thing. Like I think me and you are older, so see kind of both worlds, but like I can't even imagine like uh generations if they just grow up with like fast, people that grow up, little kids that growing up with TikTok. And we're not saying I hate saying everything's bad, good or bad. Like we were talking about it, nothing's black and white. It's so complex. It's such a complex thing, right? But we're talking like if you're choosing to grow up from very beginning where your brain is like a sponge and it's the most you have the most neurons in your brain and you're choosing to consume and this fast moving pace like media, you're just growing up that way, that's going to have some effects in the way you learn. You're going to have attention, you can have a shorter attention span, and that's just one little fact, one little part of it, but it's going to affect you. So I think it's important for us to be more conscious about like these decisions and how they affect us.
No, absolutely, because the media that you consume, it's the same as the kind of food that you consume. It's just food for the brain. It works in the exact same way, and it doesn't really it doesn't really hit you the extent to the effects that has until you actually like deal with the consequences. Like as you said, it wasn't until you realized just like how high your anxiety had gotten that you realized, oh, this is a problem, and I need to take care of this because I have to be able to function in a society and be able to talk to people. I can't just, shut myself off from the world. And it's like I mentioned before. I think like anything in the human experience, it's a pendulum swing. It just depends on like whether you're able to catch it, before it actually goes like catastrophic down the line. Um, when you have to actually take that back. I mean, with food ordering, yeah, the other thing that I've noticed is that like, a lot of people have issues or very heated opinions regarding immigration these days, and a lot of these workers, when they come to the country, they work on these food service apps, and I realized to myself, I was like, well, you know what, like anyone that's kind of against this kind of mass immigration, part of what they should probably be arguing for is for people to get off these Uber Eats apps, because then that doesn't serve them money, and then that doesn't go into these workers that are here for one reason or another. Like these, there has to be some kind of not, maybe creative isn't the right word for it, but there has to be some kind of uh a way for people to step outside of these apps and systems that we use, to better understand the impact that they're having on themselves and their communities and the greater society around them, to kind of circumvent that. I mean, there have been talks about the generation of like a new social media app that's going to come out, or like potentially going to come out in the next couple of years, where instead of having a single feed where you go between apps, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, what have you, that instead it would just be an app that you could log into, and then it would have your group chat. So you would be able to send different reels or posts from all these different apps, but the whole thing would exist in like the single group chat app, so that you could at least filter it, so that you're not just like dealing with like just nonstop doom scrolling feed. Now it's about what you and your friends or whatever people are in the group chat. Now it's what you guys curate. So like the point that I'm getting at is that, what we've been talking about is being able to curate your environment, and what you take into in the apps that you use and the services that you consume, they make a direct impact on your life. And getting into a more conscious way of consumption, that's really the only way to gain any agency back in the digital age. Because if you let your life be ruled by these algorithms, if you let your life be ruled by engineers and people that you'll never meet that are just looking out for the company's bottom line, well, you're going to fall prey to whatever that thing is. You're just going to be at the whims of these people. Because, like I myself, I really need to. I struggle with like social media addiction in some ways, like a lot of people do, where it's just you spend a couple minutes doom scrolling, and then the next thing you know, it's an hour or two gone by, and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like like I have no business being here. There's no reason for me to keep doing this. But like 1 out of every 10 reels is like, oh, this is actually useful information about an issue that's affecting my local community, or some news story, or some new creative piece that gives you inspiration to do something else in your life. Like there's just one like little nugget out of every however many reels that is actually useful, but everything else is just trash. And you kind of have to sift through it in order to get to like the actual useful information. It's just a lot of signal, or sorry, it's a lot of noise compared to the signal that you're looking for. And so, yeah, whatever shape that app takes in the future, I think that it's going to come at a premium to a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be excited to use it, because they're just like, look, we're done with this, man. Like I'm sick and tired of having to use these reels to get useful information, because you can't feasibly exist in the 21st century as like an online person that's trying to like make a living, and partially by being online, without being on these apps. You have to be on the apps. There's no real way around it. And even if you cut yourself off from all of these different like reels or like YouTube shorts or what have you, they're always going to find you. There's always just going to be something on the timeline that does it. Like I've been really careful to curate like the Outsider Supply feed account, to make sure like there's no political noise, there's like nothing. I just want to see art. I just want to see artists and creatives. And still, every like couple of weeks, I have to prune it and actively work on like blocking people or muting posts just because I'm like, look, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't care. I just want to focus on art and artists so that, it'll help me find them so I can interview them so we can highlight their work and, what have you. But I think eventually there's going to come some kind of a service or an app that is going to be able to make this curation a lot easier. Just because, like, this conversation that we're having, I've had it with friends for the like past several years. I've had it with family members for the past several years, and I bet like millions of other people have had as well across the globe. They're just sick and tired of being forced to be at the whim of these algorithms because one out of every 10th thing is actually useful to you, but those 9 other things that you have to sift through, they still take up your time. And time is one of the few resources on that like is extremely valuable to each and every person because you're not going to get back those years, you're not going to get back those minutes, you're not going to get back those hours that you waste on this kind of stuff. And when you look back on the totality of it all, it just it just reminds you like, my God, like this is how much I've wasted on this is how much I've wasted on that. And it doesn't seem to be at least right now, if we look at the present day, that it's getting any better. So I have faith that somebody will like eventually be able to create something, whether it's a platform or an app or what have you, that will allow people to curate their feeds in a much more specific way. Because like realistic, like we have to, like there's no other choice. We can't keep going on like this. We can't have the next generation growing up thinking that they're going to be influencers. I think that's like the number one job right now. Last I heard that people are going for out of high school. It's like we can't live in a sustainable world. We're still gonna need people that are actually making useful services and products. We can't just have everyone doing TikTok dances.
Plus, it's like, yeah, like we're talking about like the enriching thing. It's like, trust me, there's not everybody's built for that either, and you'd be surprised like if you choose this other avenue, you will fall in love with it, but you're not even going to give all these other avenues a chance because the fastest thing being shoved in your face is this other method. And yeah, I think there is an exhaustion. I think I saw an article where it was talking about how like actually it's the newer gen, the new gen is starting to like drop. Like it's the biggest out of all the generations. Like I think it's the newest one. They've said that it's like gone down. Like I can't remember the exact percentage, but they've done studies where like they're kind of just like not they're dropping social media. And I think it's just I think it's getting to that point of exhaustion. And it's funny enough, it's the companies always because they want to make it into this revenue thing, and they always seem to fuck it up. They never know how. You know what I mean? Like when Instagram was amazing and I loved it, like I said, it was because there was a real community there of artists, and it was an actual real space. And guess what? Like you let people do their thing. They always find a way to make it where it's like actual real. Uh, well, you're talking to real people. You're actually getting what you want. You're socializing with actually. It's being an actual social media. It's a real social platform. And then lo and behold, these websites always want to be interested in the revenue part, and then they start making all these changes and they always ruin it. And it's like that's what happened. Like Instagram started doing like more, they changed the program, they started favoring like monetizing, like they want people to pay for exposure, and then so other people got that. They started having sponsors, so then they started kind of down flagging a lot of people artwork, because if it was like nudity and figures, stuff like that, that started affecting them for them. And they started now favoring shorts more because they want to compete with like, the TikTok and YouTube. And it's like that's one thing. And then like you said, they want the algorithm too has just become so bad where it's like what they want. Like my Instagram, thankfully, the art one it's curated, and so like a lot of the stuff there at least is art. It's all art, so that's the beautiful thing about it. X is probably the worst one of all of them, where like the normal feed is just it's really bad. It honestly, and the only reason I'm even on these because like I had a really healthy. We have to. It's our responsibility to find a healthy balance, but like you said, a lot of people are at the mercy, especially artists that I knew that got their business through these sites organically, then they're at the mercy of these sites. So now they have to put up with all the BS, and they have to unfortunately be on these sites. Like I'm one of those people too, where like I would spend way less time on my socials. I really would, but it's like I have to be on there a lot of the time because it's the way, one of the ways. Thankfully, like I'm kind of getting more connected to like the art scene here locally, which is beautiful. I'm starting to do that too, but I be in the social sphere a lot. Like I have to be in these apps, and a lot of times more than I would like to be honest. And it's getting exhausting. I think it's our responsibility to choose. Be like, okay, we have to know what to consume, and also just want to pull back. You know, like I said, YouTube I want to use the most, and that's because at least there I have the channels that I like to watch. I just skip all the BS. I don't even go on the shorts a lot of the time, and I just kind of like it can be like, all right, what I'm consuming. Not saying that I don't consume like other stuff where it's like everything I everything I'm watching is like amazing and like brain stimulating. It's not. You know, we all need also some like just silly fun like breaks, just some we all need to have that. It's a balance. Everything's a balance. But like responsible and like conscious about like, all right, how much time am I spending? And then all this time I've spent, am I actually doing something that's nourishing my brain or actually giving me something back, or am I just stuck in this like, doom scroll thing? It's so funny because these terms, it's like a real thing, doom scrolling and everything. Like it's so weird. It's a real thing, and it's hard to pull back. That's the thing about the brain, man. It's like your brain's it's evolved to go through the path of less resistance for survival reasons. That's the crazy thing about it. It's like your brain is literally designed. The newest part of our brain that's evolved is made so you kind of choose the easiest. You always choose the easiest decision, the path of less resistance, because it's made to survive. So that's why it's so hard for you to like people to be like literally made for us to go not hardest decision, to not take the hardest decision. So that's why when people are like, I want to go to the gym, like a lot of times it's like just forcing yourself to get to the gym and like put on your clothes and go. Like, all right, cool, we're doing this. Then it's like easier. But like doing the to get to that, to like even making the movement to like, all right, I'm gonna force myself. That right there is like your brain is literally made to be like, no, like you don't move, like sit back. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to be using up energy, blah blah blah. So, and it's the same thing with these like social media things. Like a lot of people fall in doom scroll, and then that builds habits. That and then that goes into like our dopamine, sensors, where it's like the anticipation of like the reward system, where it's like, oh, it's easy dopamine hit, and it's more like the anticipation, like I'm gonna scroll and I'm gonna hit something. It's like a lot of the dopamine that's released you get from the anticipation of a reward. It's not so much the reward, and like proven where it's like the reward starts diminishing after repetition. So like if you do like a repetitive thing, even when you get the reward back, like you can, they can actually see it in the brain, but like you start getting less reward back feedback from dopamine. But a lot of the reward comes from the anticipation of that. Like, by doing this action, you're going to get that little dopamine hit. And that's one of the reasons why we do, like the doom scroll and the social media addiction stuff. Is a real bad thing to actually pull back, because we're actually our brains are actually changing and molding to do that. So like when you're scrolling, it's because you keep doing it sometimes to the point where a lot of people are like, I can't stop, like I just get stuck in this like this repetition. It's because your brain is literally like, all right, that we're gonna get the next dopamine. You're getting dopamine as you're waiting for the next hit. You're gonna hit that next video that's gonna be it's gonna be something awesome. It's gonna be there, and then you get something and it's not. You go back and you repeat that pattern, and you get stuck in this like uh, it's so we have to I think we have to just be more conscious and responsible. Like everything's a balance. Like I said, nothing's bad. Nothing is inherently bad. I don't believe in that. I think it's just everything's more complex, and it's a balance. We just have to be kind of conscious about like what decisions, how much time we're pouring into something, how much of our time we're dedicating to this, and or what you're getting out of this activity versus this. It's hard. It's
Yeah, but at the same time, I think, like I mentioned earlier, whatever service or app comes along that actually fixes this problem, I mean, that's the $1 trillion idea right there. Just because I mean, imagine it, like if you did actually have like let's say like China's version of the TikTok app, because their version is, you know, kids doing science experiments or museums that are holding new exhibitions or anything that's enriching culturally or mentally. That's what they feature for their youth, and that's what they're focusing on. And I'm sure, like, you know, people still find a way to access Instagram or Facebook Reels or what have you. And there's things that go beyond the Chinese firewall that are still like, you know, slop tier content that we have here. I'm sure they have their own problems there too. But if we had an app that actually featured or some kind of a service that was able to capitalize on that, that would be a godsend. I mean, you would just sign up, pick whatever categories of interest you have, whether it's photography or what have you, and then you're just fed rather, a slew of creators or people that work in developing film or discovering new techniques or what have you, in whichever field you want to study. Like that is some of the more interesting stuff. I mean, like I've seen reels of people that are like, let's say they're starting a hobby farm or they're building like a deck from scratch, not knowing how to do any of this. Like that's the kind of content that I want to see, is just people like trying out new things, people that are like pushing the boundaries of certain industries or breaking news stories or undercover footage or what have you. Like that's actually the most interesting thing. Uh to me, and every now and then I'll stumble upon that content, but you know, it's like you said, you're just kind of, you got to wade through however many reels to get to that actual golden nugget. um and it's hard, like, because they don't make it easy to curate your feed either. I mean, like the amount of times that I've been like, okay, this is actually worth like getting off of my feed, then I have to go and then select the option, and then I have to mute this person, and then even that doesn't even get rid of it. Not completely, anyways, because you have to repeat that pattern several times in order for it to actually filter it out of your system. And then still, every now and then, you might get a reel or a post or what have you that has certain elements of it that you're like, okay, this is just slop. Like I have no need for this. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, like you said, it's neither good nor bad. Like that, this is an incredibly powerful tool. It's just if the alignment and if the incentive structure isn't there, and if it's not centered on some ideas of what human excellence is, or it doesn't take into consideration how our brain is hardwired, you know, as you said, through all these centuries of evolution that we've gone through to seek the easiest path. If it's not made with that in mind, then automatically it works against us, you know, because the most engaging content out there is what's going to get you to have the highest emotional response. Well, the highest emotional response is going to be rage. It's going to be like anger. It's going to be, I don't know, sadness or whatever, like anything at the height of that emotion. But if you're just teetering from emotion to emotion constantly and just getting enraged by things, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, you're just, I mean, you're whipping yourself up for like what? Like before you head off to sleep? Like you're just you're getting your heart rate to 110 for like what? So that you could have yourself a nice comfortable sleep? Like
I
that's psychotic
that,
activity,
but
you know?
that's we weren't built for that either. Like that's the thing. It's like we really weren't built for like taking this much information, you know, like in this amount, this vast amount of info and emotion at once. Like we weren't. A lot of times that's why we get people, and then you know there people we're less likely to take action. There's this thing in about like empathy is an important thing. It's such an important thing, but also empathy doesn't always equal action. And I was reading this book on, and I was talking about like part of that was fascinating. What's like it happens too. It's like if you have too much people, much right. It's like are very they have a lot of empathy. I'm like a
Hmm.
very I consider myself a highly empathetic person, and but what happens is like if you take on too much, you get overwhelmed. You actually don't do anything because you get so overstimulated. You end up actually not taking action because you just like your brain's just like like
Hmm.
overwhelmed. It's overheating, and you're kind of like I need to take a breather and just like you have to find this weird balance where it's just like you have to have empathy because it's so important, but also like not go too overwhelm, where you overwhelm your mind and then you end up not taking action, which is fascinating because like you would think like, the more empathetic person you are, the more likely you're to do something. But it's like there is actually a threshold where if you pass over that, you end up becoming so that you are less likely to do anything or even actually take an action. And I think that's what happens in a lot of with many things, right? But I think that's another thing. It's like we're taking on so much information sometimes, and it just becomes we're really not built for that much stimulation. And then not to get crazy, but like that's the thing too. It's like where I was talking about even going back to like allowing these places to be like, well, I'm gonna get my booth paid, so I'm gonna allow AI art. Well, the thing with me too, it's like you have messed up, but people have to take in consideration problems we run into is people don't consider in other humans and or don't have the best interest for a lot of people. Like a lot of people end up thinking very selfishly and to like a awful level. And this example, like the social media and stuff, that is a huge why. I mean, it is corporate. I hate to be that person like, oh, corporate, but like it is corporate America has a shit ton of issues, and this is one of them too. Like corporate and like and and all that stuff. It's like this is a huge reason why we're in this predicament is because this thing where we have people. Listen, these people know how to keep attention. Consumerism
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, right? Like a huge issue we're all dealing with, and a lot of places we're at, like yeah, we can point the finger at people, right? But it's really ultimately we can make a change to the individuals, but honestly, a lot of the blame is the selfish people that are on top. They know what they're doing because a lot of these things, how like algorithms work, selling, marketing, ads, dude, ads are shoved everywhere, and all this it's like it's down to a science and into like down to like mathematical. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have these experts that know exactly how to work, how to like how to target attention, how to grasp repetition. I mean, there were they're like when they show these ads, you have all these things like basic to the most basic understanding, like just hearing an ad repeated over and over, that whether you want to or not or care about the product or not, just one of the millions of things that advertisement does is like once you see this product repeated or hear it or jingles, that's why jingles exist in products and stuff, that literally gets into your subconscious, so you think about this product and it's already kind of like ninjaed itself to your mind. And that's a lot of how advertisement works. But that's one part of it, right? But like my thing is a lot of these companies that are just shoving, they favor like the algorithm to just market. They don't really care about the content that's being sold or the content creators. They're just more care more like monetization and making money off the website and stuff. It's a very selfish thing because I know it's hard. You want to make money, but that's the consequence. I think that's the consequence of like in a way capitalism where you can almost grow to like the sky's the limit, is that you don't even there needs to be a level of responsibility where you have to realize how this is affecting humans and what you're doing. And a lot of these people don't care. They're just like push this shit out there, and who cares about the consequences, they don't like all these things that are how they're designed. These people kind of know there's ramifications and the consequences to it, but ultimately they don't care. And it's the thing with advertising, consumerism. We know the issue with consumerism. A lot of these people know that we don't need millions of these things being made. Things are being created at a faster rate than ever. Like we're making products are being created. They're ending up in landfills. Like we're literally causing so much damage to the planet and all that stuff. And it's just like, guess what? Like there should be a conscious decision to be like, hey man, this is not good for the whole human race in a way. But it's like a lot of these that are like don't end up caring, or they pass the responsibility on to consumers, and it's like that's not really fair, man. It's like the whole recycling thing. There's this whole
Mm-hmm.
documentary. I'm not gonna go into detail, but like basically talking about like we're ending up with like fast fashion or fast products. Like things are made cheaper, faster now, but like what happens is they don't last as long, right? So I grew up in a generation where like hand me downs from like older gens or decades, And I remember stuff you hear it all the time. It sounds so cliche, but like you could fix a lot of stuff, or it was made to last. And then people nowadays, it's true. Like a lot of the products don't last as long, and it's they're designed that way. It's because they need to be made at such a fast pace, and they need to make profit, turn profit on these stuff. So they're making that at such a astronomical amount and at a cheaper level. So products and the stuff of quality is just gone down. And so what ends up happening is people either were consumed and they end up throwing them away. And it's like this thing that should have could have lasted back in the day when it was made, you know, last you 20 years or sometimes even to the next generation. You could pass it on to your grandchildren. Nowadays, it like lasts for like a month or a couple months and then it breaks and ends up in the trash. It was this whole thing, the documentary where it's like a lot of the stuff where it's like, okay, we need to start thinking about making stuff more we need to be conscious about making it recyclable or more what's the word for it, but like where you can easily it's easy to destroy or it could be it's more earth friendly, right? Like
Yeah.
it's stuff like and so these comp let's sure let's just do that or we'll put the recycle thing symbol on there on these symbols, but then it's been found out where it's like a lot of the symbols are meaningless. They're actually not they're not recyclable,
Mm-hmm.
or they'd be like, well, we're doing the corporations would be like, well, look, we're doing our part. We chose this product, the box that the product comes in. It's more earth friendly, whatever, and then the rest is up to the public. It's out of our hands. They they even had these experts that would come into the factories and be like, all right, what are you doing to like make your product more or more earth friendly or whatever, and these corporations like do these like short half-assed methods and then be like, all right, we did our part. But the problem that started happening is like, yeah, maybe doing some stuff that the product was more like, friendly. But what happened is you're still making it at such a stupidly crazy level that it's not helping because you're still creating an insane amount of it and it's ending up in the trash and landfills, and a lot of it wasn't decomposable. Actually wasn't eco-friendly, like as they were saying. Like they would put these symbols like, oh, like a lot of the products, it was crazy, but like a lot of the products that I've known that it's like, oh, they have these symbols. The documentary is going over it. Like experts were like, well, that symbol doesn't mean anything. That's just they just put that there to be like, hey, look, we're doing our part. But it's like actually they're like, this can only be disposed and destroyed in this type of like landfill with these products, and that never happens or never gets to that part. Blah blah blah. So it's like this weird thing where it's like these companies know and they're constantly doing that matter. They're just going to keep churning it out. And it's the same way with like, I think social media and like all this fast uh, product, these ads that constantly are everywhere. Ads are everywhere. I mean, streaming services, man. Like that's the thing. It's like, dude, every streaming service has ads. Like
Mm-hmm.
now it's like you have to pay premium ads in the beginning of whatever you're watching, in the middle, and there's four more ads. And it's like, God, man, you're just plummeting. Constantly shoved all this stuff in your face, and it's just like wonder if people are over consuming too. It's like you're not being responsible about it either, and it's fucked up because it's like it's easy to be like, well, people should stop over consuming. It's like, well, it's not, because it comes down to like a literal science of the mind, and the people that are from the top using methods that I know that are the best or most addictive. Thing about it, it's like these people they're working from a carefully curated where they know it's the most addictive. That's what's the most kind of, in a way, evil. It is kind of evilish because it's like targeting that part. They're conscious of how addictive these things are, these substances, this media, whatever, and manufacturing the stuff and presenting it where they know it's going to do the most, you know, damage, for lack of a better word, but like the most addictive way. And it comes down like, yeah, consumers can do something about it, but hey man, that's also fucked up because it's like if you're making it hard for people to become less addictive and not fall addicted to these products or these algorithms, how do you get people to do that when they're already being, engineered, that, for being able to like pull back from that or but that's just what I've been thinking about too a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean, I whenever this topic conversation comes among my friends or family, the thing that I fall back on is that the only real way, because I like just to tie it all back, a lot of these things that we're talking about, these are relating to forces that are outside of ourselves. That, as you said, they have methods of operation that have been existing for decades. These are companies that have offshore accounts and billions in wealth and billions of investors. Like, these are point that I'm making is that the system exists outside of ourselves to such an extent that it's very difficult for any one person to think, okay, how can I exist simultaneously in this world and retain my own personal agency and control over the media that I consume without falling prey to the ploys of advertisers who have an innate understanding of the human psychology, without falling to people that are looking to the bottom line of the company, that are looking to squeeze out every single second that I'm on the app, to the point where they consider everything from the settings menu to how I can share things to my other friends on the app, and so on and so forth. This almost larger than life force that exists outside of ourselves, that we have no direct impact on, that even if we worked at these companies we would have no direct impact on, because they have teams of managers, they have teams upon teams upon teams, all these different hierarchies that no one person can really have control over. I think the only thing that I fall back on as an actual effective way to combat all of these outside forces, um, is that not only like do you have to live in such a way that, like, as we've described before, about considering the kind of media that you consume and the kind of channels that you go through, um, and certainly, this is not the outsider supply, like me speaking on behalf of the company, but that's why a lot of people are pirating media. That's why a lot of people are not choosing to go and pay for these streaming services, because they're like, look, I'm tired of these ads. I'm tired of paying for this. I'm tired of paying for this content. This is ridiculous. We thought streaming was going to free us from cable. Now it's like, okay, there's specific shows are on specific channels. So now it's like, it's the same thing all over again, except now it's just online. And pirating is like it's getting a revitalization, just because people are like just so sick and tired of how it's being pushed on us. But I'm saying that as an example to say that we have to find those methods in which we can exist in the world but still retain that control. But also, the only other way to like affect this kind of change on a large enough scale, I think, as with any other change that one wants to affect on the world, is to just be that example of a person that actually does these things. Whether it's, whenever you're going out to buy like some new kitchen appliance, trying to see if there's one that was made back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, what have you, that someone is selling on Facebook Marketplace or on like Kijiji or what have you, eBay, instead of buying the newest, latest thing that, sure, it's up to date and it has an app, but it's also made out of plastic. And as you said, you're going to have to throw it out in the next couple of months or whatever, because all of these products are manufactured with an end date that is much shorter than what the products were of our parents and their parents' parents. And I think the only way to affect any like real change on a societal level like that is to just be somebody that is an example of those things. So someone that chooses not to be a doom scroller, or chooses not to order Uber Eats, or chooses not to, consume that media, or what have you. Because when you're able to reverberate that, not only like in your own life, but also to your own inner network, there's no telling what kind of wave that's going to cause to everyone else. I mean, like for me personally, like I always keep a list handy of like websites or services that I use that people are like, oh my God, I don't want to pay for Adobe, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to go like through this traditional route. I'm just so sick and tired of it. I don't want to use this platform to find it. And I'm like, boom, I got you. I know exactly like which website you got to use, or which torrenting service, or what have you. I think that's really the only effective way, because like I want to make sure that we're not just having this conversation for the sake of just being like, oh man, like shit sucks, like what are we supposed to do, what's the average person supposed to do. But like in terms of actionable steps, like just take the time to do some research and be like, okay, I don't like my current station in life, I don't like that I'm forced to obey all these algorithms. What other services exist? Are there any other websites that exist? Are there any other communities that exist that I can actually be a part of, that is more meaningful, that is more personable, that's actually more aligned with ideals that reflect what humanity should be, instead of this like watered down, filtered, algorithmic version that we're supposed to consume, which is like not leading us anywhere good. You know, as you said, it's not just about the anxiety; it's about the rates of depression, or this loss of meaning that people have, this loss of purpose that people seem to have. It's all as a result of the, you know, the environment that we live in, the media that we consume, the food that we eat, the products that we have. The only real way is to, yeah, just make those changes within yourself and just try to, you know, impress upon the people that are closest to you that like this is an alternative. It's something that is worth considering, and that we actually have to push for this. Because otherwise, then, you know, then they win, and then we're just stuck in this world where you can't buy anything unless it's through the official channels, where you can't consume a service unless it's through the official channels, where you can't enjoy anything unless it's through these official channels, and
Mercy,
that's
a hundred
depressing.
percent. At the mercy of like Amazon stuff, because that's the thing too. Like Amazon, they have the Amazon's choice. They would, it's like they would have these sellers on there, right? Like a seller that was selling like diapers and stuff, and so what Amazon would be like, oh, they would like reverse engineer and they're like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we can do the diapers, and Amazon, you can't compete with fucking Amazon on pricing. Amazon's like, oh, you're selling your diaper for $14. We're gonna sell it for like $6. We can do that. They can do that. And so what happens is they just end up out beating whatever other competitor, small business, and ends up being destroyed, whatever. And it's like it's hard, man. We can make these small decisions, but like I said, that's what's kind of like messed up is you have these other people that are like in such a high rank level of like, of like level where it's like they're so hard and then if it gets too far, it's really hard to make changes, right? Because like capitalism and stuff, this kind of behavior. And so like a lot of people that work in these fields that are designing these algorithms and stuff, a lot of those people, some like dark person in a suit, right? It's not like some evil entity, like some, dark, doing all these plans. It's like a lot of these people working in these spaces, creating these things are normal people too. But unfortunately, everything society's it's getting built in, especially in our society here in the US. It's like designed to reward that. So people that work in these fields do have to make these choices, have to do these things to make a living, and it's because that's what's rewarded. So it's hard to get out of these, and like especially people that are like in less economic, and they're in rougher economic statuses, and they don't have that. They can make it's harder for them to make these decisions. They have to once something changes that bad, it's like, well, I have to. Everything else is so on, it's so expensive that I have to end up going with this choice, unfortunately. But I think we all have to make that decision at least, because there's people I don't have that luxury or the choice because they're in a state where it's in a run have the these decisions, unfortunately. But, I think it is like you said, we do have to make these choices, and that's what the reason I tied it back to the booth and the AI thing. It's like that's why we have to be conscious about stuff like that, right? Because like at the ultimately, it's like if these places that are like, oh yeah, well we don't care, we're getting paid for our booth, but that's gonna have consequences down the line, and so we have to be conscious and choose what we want to consume or we want to reward, in a sense, or tell these companies, corporations what we want. Like you said, the pirating it is definitely back. It's on an upswing. It's because it's just like
Mm.
that's one way we can kind of be like, hey, like we're not gonna take this anymore. It's kind of because they will as far as they can squeeze. It's like sharing password. Next is like, oh, you want the no ad service? You have to pay like $9 more. It's like, come on, man. Like, and then being shared across different streaming services, and we're basically paying for like three cables.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like it's come full circle in that way. Um, but listen, so we're at the we're at the 2 hour mark. Is there anything you wanted to discuss or feature any like works coming up or new exhibitions you're gonna have before we head out?
right now it's kind of something will pop up maybe in the future, but for now, no, it's just these two. I mean, I am working on new works. I am going to work on this new series paintings actually that I'll be sharing on my yeah. I was kind of with this actually. So I had thought about doing something with like this pixel kind of broken look, and it and this company actually reached out to me. The I forget what they're called. The Pix. I tagged them on the other one. I think on there, but they sent me this cube, and it's funny because they reached out to me. Yeah, that one. Uh, like, hey, do you mind if I send you this product? And I had seen, I think similar products before to this one, but I think this is one of the first ones. I remember seeing it being advertised, and I was like, so I was just like, I already had thought about like doing like a series, something with like this, like seeing lens or painting some series or like a paintings through this pixel broken color kind of look. So I'm working on like a series of paintings right now. I'm doing some studies, and then I'm gonna probably do a whole set of series, which is rare for me because I usually do like some paintings. I'm like interested in like something I'm at the moment I'm interested in, and then I'll pour out some. And but this is like the first one where I'm like, I actually want to the next set of paintings is gonna be with this idea I have, and it should be interesting. We'll see where it goes. But that's about it. I mean, otherwise I don't. It was kind of just nice to chat and just yap for a couple hours.
Yeah, no, right on, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these pieces come through. I did see this post earlier. It's interesting that they're making these like little glass artifacts of it.
Mhm.
Kind of like a cool trinket to have. I don't know, it just gives you kind of like a new perspective on whatever it is that you're looking at. Because like you said, you can just kind of put this up against anything and it'll pixelate it, or just make it into any other image. Because I did see they have like quite a few other designs that they have of all these different glass pieces that they're making with other artists and whatnot. Oh, I
And like
didn't
as painters, it just
I didn't. Sorry, I didn't realize that they could actually. Because I thought that this was like the cat here was like a photo that someone put in the back, and the glass was just like causing like a shadow on it. But no, like the fragments in the glass, the way that they have made
yeah,
it,
yeah.
will actually make the image. Well, I didn't realize that. Wow.
I didn't know either. I didn't know they were making all that stuff. That's nuts. I only knew the other pixel thing. Um, as a painter, to me, I found it really interesting. Now, this is like something I had already it had been explored in the art community, but like pixel thing was amazing because it's like as painters, the when you do paint, a lot of times you're thinking in shapes. Depending on what kind of painter you are, but like you think of paint as in like shapes and blocks of color relationships and stuff. So like, see, that's fascinating because like a lot of times when painters are painting, like we squint to see like your values and your shapes, and
Hmm.
this is like another level where it's just like it's breaking it down even more. It's like a cube pixelated form, and I just find that fascinating. Like I want to see what images I can transfer to this kind of visual, and then see if I can transfer it onto paint. And I've done a couple more studies, and I'm liking the results. It's cool. It's like a different. I can take it and see what I can push out. So that's going to probably be the next set of paintings I'm going to be working on.
Well, now I'm wondering if they can actually do it in reverse. If they can actually like, if you let's say if you painted in like the pixel format, and if they made like a glass filter that could actually do it the other way, so that it actually turns it into more like realistic and
Yeah.
fluid, like sharp shapes. I'm wondering if they can do that because I know like always like yeah, obviously like in terms of this kind of glass stuff, as long as you understand the theory around like the lenses and how the light breaks and all that, you can make just about any design you can. Um, but I'm wondering if they can actually make something like that because that would be really cool. Because like I've really only seen this stuff in like little like trinket shops or like little like convenience stores or whatever, like as little like knickknacks or stuff that you could buy at a gas station. But the fact that they're actually making stuff like this, like putting a very detailed image and etching it into glass, I've never seen anything done like this before.
Actually tripping me out. Like I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I don't know what kind of like laser engraving or whatever the tools that they use for this, but like this is very cool. Like you're literally putting all these very different like fine details inside of the glass itself, and then when you just shine the light a specific way on it, you can actually see this. I mean, like the moon one, that's nuts.
light in such an order that it's like projecting this image. It's really cool. I was like, wow, that's awesome. But no, I'm excited. And that's the cool thing about like the pixel thing. It's like it's meant to. What I like about it's like that's a lot of like figurative painters. We know when they paint, it's like Fetchin and like so Soroya or like all those old artists, like the most popular ones. But like a lot of figurative painters, you when you zoom into the images, it just looks like a bunch of swatches of color, right? It's just like a bunch of splashes. But then when you like
Mm.
step back, you can see the image. What's kind of similar with like that's why I'm saying like it's very close to like how painters kind of some painters paint. And so the pixel thing, what I find fascinating is like those small studies I've done. If you step back at a distance, it looks like a normal face. Like here, I purposely made it so you can tell it's pixelated.
Hmm.
But that's kind of the goal. The other goal of the painting is I want it to be like when you're close up, you can pixelate it, but when you step at a certain distance, you can see just the image of what it is. And the studies I've been doing, it's cool because if you like staring from like from a distance, you can see it. It just looks like a normal, completely painted piece. It doesn't look pixelated at all. It's until you get closer that you can see that I painted it, in broken shapes. And painters have been painted like that forever, but I want to. This is cool because it takes it to such an extreme. I love that blue. You see that blue to the left of the head? That's
Mm.
coming from the window. So stuff like that. It's like I love. Like
Oh.
it's just such a strong blue. I love it. Like those two on her left cheek, you can see those two perfect cubes. It's such a cool break, and that's how artists. That's a lot of artists are trained to see. It's like you see these shapes, you just paint in shapes, and you can. It's fascinating to me how much you see like her left face, four squares. You can see it. It's like that orange,
Mm.
desaturated orange, and then the two eyes build her eye, and then the closest cube to her nose. Like it's just four squares, but cheek. And I've always loved that. That's some of my favorite painters are like such incredible figurative painters are like that. You can if you can represent an eye in like so many awesome brush strokes. It's such an expressive way of painting, and the fact that you can paint a figure or an eye, you can see an eye, but when you look close to it, it just looks like swollen brush strokes. And this is such a crazy cool level where it's like it's a few squares, but it's like a face. Your brain is filling in the rest.
Yeah, it's very cool. No, I'm excited to see what you come up with in this. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, thank you, Seb, for making the time to come on the show again. People can find all your stuff at Wolfseby. We'll be featuring the tag in the description there. Check out his stuff, guys. And you're selling prints still, right?
Yep, my link, and like I said on my description, you can see it's a link, and it goes to all my different social medias, and it goes to my website where I sell prints and in paintings and stuff like that. So
Beautiful. Yeah, check the stuff out, guys. We'll link in the description there. Pick up a piece or two if you can. And yeah, thank you, Seb, for making the time today. It's been good to have you. It's been a while, but glad to hear that you're still at it. You're still keeping up with things, and doing your thing. It's always great to see you on the timeline, man.
and thanks for having me. I'm sure we'll be in the future.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, guys, with that, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you later.